Hello, welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all of the places you can find me should be linked in the description box just below this video. How are you today? I hope you are managing to stay safe and well. It's been a couple of weeks since we sat down and did our weekly chat. If you're new here, sorry, I've just launched into my tirade. If you're new here, you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting, spinning, crochet and weaving. And once a week I usually sit down and chat about what I've been making in the last week or so. It's been a couple of weeks since I sat and did my weekly chat, and hasn't the world changed a lot since we last spoke? I hope you're all doing well, staying safe. Yeah, it's hard to know what to do for the best at the moment, isn't it? There are many things to worry about in the world at the moment. In terms of the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel, I'm going to try and carry on business as normal, and that's not to say that I'm making light of the current situation. I just think I need the distraction from the news and everything else that's going on. So I figure if I need that, then maybe some of you lovely people out there will need that too. So yeah, I'm here to chat about all of the stuff that I've been making in the last couple of weeks. Well, not all of it, because that would be a very long video. Before I get stuck in, I've got knitting, spinning and crochet this week. But anyway, before I get into all of that stuff, I've got a few thank yous that I'd like to say. First off, I'd like to say a massive thank you to everyone who's been sending stuff for the Yarn and Yarns community window display. I popped up a couple of standalone videos about that and the items that I've received, and I'm planning to continue to do that. So if you're interested in finding out what that's all about, then I'll pop a link up in the corner to one of those videos, and you'll find them on the channel. They're Yarn and Yarns extras, and I'm sure many of you will have already watched them anyway. So yeah, that's been a real highlight for me over the last couple of weeks, and so many more of you have promised that you're making and sending things. So yeah, I can't wait to put that window display together. I also last week posted up a Yarn and Yarns extra video entitled Me and I probably could have titled that better, but it was basically my knitting story, a little bit of my history and in terms of knitting, and also how I came to live in Wales, be the owner of a small bricks and mortar yarn shop. And I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who left comments sharing their own creative story. I loved reading all of those, and it sparked lots of memories for me of other things that I hadn't really thought about. So I sat down and just kind of recorded that video ad hoc and didn't really think too much about what I was going to say, or spend too long a time sort of thinking about what part in my life, like knitting, crochet, creating, has played. But there were a couple of comments in particular that really sparked some memories for me. Yeah, I'm just really thankful for all of those comments, because it brought back some really wonderful memories. And if you followed the channel for a while, my mum's been gone for over a decade now, so it was really nice to read those stories and have that sort of spark some of my own memories, and so I spent some happy moments remembering those things. So yeah, thank you. Finally, I usually do this at the end, but I just wanted to thank anyone who has been able to support the channel via coffee donations. I have always said that I will be open and transparent about the donations that I've received, and since I last chatted about this, which was maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I've received £15, so thank you so very much. I was putting that money aside for a trip, maybe to Wonderwall, but obviously with the uncertainty around the health situation at the moment, we don't know yet whether that festival will go ahead, but I shall continue to put the coffee donations aside, and at some point I will let you know what will happen with those, whether I treat myself to something, or maybe we'll go to a festival later on in the year if things start to calm down and get back on an even keel. That is if Wonderwall is cancelled. We shall see. Anyway, I've been chatting for a good few minutes and I haven't showed you any stuff, so let's get cracking. I think I'm going to start with crochet this week. So I have been crocheting away on my open grid sweater. I've chatted about this on videos before. It's a pattern that was in a recent issue of Inside Crochet magazine, and I'll show you a picture of the sweater. A friend of mine had this magazine and didn't like the sweater, so she ripped out the pattern for me. I've been making my own version. However, I'm not sure if I'm going to carry on with this. So I finished the front. So basically I have been marling together lots of Rowan Valley tweed, which is one of their British yarns. It's a 4-ply yarn and it's held double throughout the pattern. The original pattern is worked in Eden Cottage Millburn 4-ply. So yeah, I finished the front and I was a bit worried because the other crochet sweater that I made, the neckline was ridiculous, but this neckline seems to be okay. Obviously I will pick up and sort of close that neckline up a little bit as per the pattern. I love the colours that I've chosen, but I'm not in love with the fabric that this is making. It's quite stiff and I don't know if I'm going to wear this. So since we last chatted, I think I just started the armhole shaping. So I finished all of the front and I also have made some reasonable progress. Let me just grab it out of the bag on the back. So I've done the first 2 colour progressions on the back as well. I really love the pattern. As I say, I'm just not sure I'm enamoured with the fabric. So what I think I'm going to do is actually I'm going to wash and block this front piece to see whether that's softened things up. This is the, sorry for all you crochet garment fans out there, but this is the thing I always find when I've attempted crochet garment patterns. Either the sizing has been crazy or I'm just not a fan of the fabric that I get. Crochet is often a lot more dense. Maybe this would have been nicer. The Eden Cottage Millburn has a silk content, so maybe that makes it sort of slightly softer and slightly drapier than this 100% wool 4-ply. But yeah, at this point in time I'm a bit up in the air. I'm just not really a fan. As I say, I like my colour progression. I love how that looks, but I think it's going to take some thinking about. So yeah, before this goes off to the frog pond for sure, after we chatted, I'm going to put this into soak and leave it to dry and see if that changes the fabric enough for me to decide to continue on with that project. We'll see. It's worked on a 4.5mm needle, and I went down, did I go down to a 4 or did I stick to a 4.5? I think I went down to a 4 because I am a really loose crocheter. I think I started with the 4.5 and it was just working out much bigger than the pattern instructions. So I went down to a 4 to achieve something like gauge. But yeah, that's the only alteration I made to that pattern. It's a really easy backwards and forwards pattern and I still love the look of the jumper. I'm just not sure if it's for me. I guess probably by next week I will know for sure. I said that the crochet hook was the only alteration I made. That was a lie. I have also slightly altered the colours. So the original pattern has 5 colours. I went with 4 in the end. I did pick out a 5th, but I decided not to use it. And also in the original pattern, the yarns that they hold together are quite random throughout the pattern, whereas I chose to do more like a gradient and didn't mix too many of the yarns together. So yeah, that's the open grid sweater. We shall see next week what its fate will be. On to knitting next, and I have finished objects to show you this week because it's been a couple of weeks since I have chatted to you. I figured I wouldn't show you my whips as well this week, my works in progress, because as you know, I like to try and keep these videos to around 30 minutes long, although the last couple of weeks I've managed to fail at that. I've chatted too much. So just finished objects this week and I'll show you my works in progress next week. I'm really excited to share some of the things that I've been working on because I've dug a couple of projects out of deep hibernation and I'm really enjoying working on them, so can't wait to share those with you. I have 3 finished objects to show you. Maybe you can class it as 4, but on to that later. The first one is my Radiate sweater, which you may have already spotted, and I shared this on Instagram earlier on in the week, so if you follow me over there it won't be any surprise. This is the Radiate pattern by Johi Locatelli, and I knit mine using some Owl About yarn, who is the lovely Jenny. She is a local dyer here in South Wales. She lives in Cardiff, and I am very lucky to know Jenny. She is a wonderful, wonderful person, and this skein that I've used in my yoke is her Knit Tea Retreat colourway from the first Cardiff retreat. So Jenny, along with Zoe, who is Pins and Needles UK, are the brains behind the Knit Tea Retreats that happen here twice a year, once in the summer in Stratford and once in the autumn in October. And at the retreats we're always lucky enough to get a goodie bag, and in the first goodie bag was a skein of this double knit yarn. Now the size that I knit, it might have been a 54, I can't remember exactly, let me check the pattern book to hand. Yeah, 54. Required just over a skein of yarn, but I was very fortunate in that a few people donated their leftovers to me. They've made projects with their yarn and had some left, so I was able to get my yoke out of the Owl About yarn DK, and the main yarn that I used, the green, is a Debbie Bliss Rialto Heathers. I have no idea whether it's still made anymore, yeah, I really love how this colour combination works, and this yoke is so nice and squishy. The pattern is Radiate by Johi Locatelli, and it's from Interpretations Volume 4. I believe the pattern is probably now available as a single pattern over on Ravelry, as this book is a couple of years old now, but this is a book from Pom Pom Press. So yeah, there's not too much else to say about this. I mostly knit this to pattern. I made a couple of changes. So on the cuff of the sleeves and also at the bottom of the body, I knit one round and bound off with the Owl About yarn, which is not part of the pattern. And I also made a couple of adjustments in terms of length. I think I made my sleeves slightly shorter and the body slightly longer than the directions were given in the pattern, but that's neither here or there. That's just a little bit of adaptation to fit my body. And yeah, it was a pretty quick knit. I cast this on as one of my 12 cast ons of Christmas, and yeah, got it finished Monday. Was it Monday or Tuesday? Might have been Tuesday. So it's kind of been about two and a half months in the making. So it was a really quick knit for me because I often switch backwards and forwards between different projects. And as requested by the lovely Kathy, who is Mountain Pearl, once I've recorded, I shall do a little bit of a sweater dance, showing how the sweater looks entirely. So you can't, obviously I'm sat down here, you can only just about see the yoke, but I shall pop that in here. Super pleased with how this sweater turned out. It was a really fun knit, so a little bit of concentration required for the yoke. It's a slip stitch pattern, so once you get into it it's really easy. You just have to be mindful of what colours you're using, and then it's just round and round stockinette, so perfect TV knitting. I took this away last weekend, so the reason I didn't record last Monday, we went away to the Cotswolds with a group of our friends, and this was perfect knitting for sitting and chatting. And I'll tell you a funny story. On the Sunday afternoon, so our friends have two teenage girls, and the girls, we'd been out for a lovely walk in the morning, and the girls had disappeared up to their bedrooms on their, you know, phones, iPads, gadgets and stuff, and the adults were just sat round in the living room chatting, and I was sat there knitting and chatting away, and then I looked up and James and then our two friends were all fallen asleep. And I was just sat there knitting and chatting to myself, so I'm not sure if it was the dulcet tones of my knitting needles clicking together or my scintillating conversation that sent them all to sleep, but I was happy there, sat knitting away. Second finished object, I have been participating in the Gnome is where you hang your hat mystery knit along. If you've followed here for a while, you'll know that I am a fan of Imagined Landscapes, who is Sarah Shearer, her little gnome patterns. She's got several out now and they're all available over on Ravelry, and most recently she has been hosting the third mystery knit along. I have been participating in that. I didn't chat about it here on the channel as I progressed through the pattern because I didn't really want to spoil it for anyone else who might have been following along with that knit along. But the last clue came out on something like the 2nd or the 3rd of March, so we're a good way on from that now. So I figured I probably won't be spoiling this for anyone. There's been if you're over on Instagram, there have been pictures of these gnomes popping up everywhere, so I'm sure you would have already seen them anyway. But here is my version of the gnome. Sorry about the jingling. I added some bells to his hat. So he's really cute. This is a fun colourwork pattern. So the first time the gnomes have any sort of colourwork. And as per usual, I used entirely hand spun yarn to make mine. I've always seen these little gnomes as ways of using up little samples of hand spun that I've been making. This one is slightly different though, in that this hand spun is not all entirely mine. So the light blue is some hand spun that I made from, I think it was from some fondant fibre. But the deep blue here was in a gift package that I recently received from the lovely Angela, and I showed that off a couple of weeks ago, and Angela included a mini skein of some yarn that she said had been hand spun by her friend, and it was this lovely deep blue, so I figured it was the perfect thing to go with my light blue. I did attempt to mix another colourway in with my light blue and it really didn't work, so I ripped back. But this lovely deep blue I think is the perfect complement to the blue that I already had. So thank you so much, Angela. I haven't forgotten your return swap package. We're doing a swap. I've got one more thing that I'm in the midst of doing, and then that package will be on its way. So I'm hoping it might be on its way to you this week. So thank you for your patience in waiting for me to get that together for you. The orange in the beard is some yarn I showed you recently. So I spun this from some fibre that my lovely friend Caroline sent to me. And this little chap also has a sweater. So I don't know, you can probably see it better on the back. So we finished the gnome and then there was one more clue left, and it's just like, what else is coming? And it turns out that Sarah had designed this really fun little colourwork sweater. I had mixed feelings about the sweater as I was making it, because underneath here on his body there is a little bit of colour work, so you're sort of covering up that lovely work that you'd already done, and I wasn't really sure about the sweater, but I think it looks really cute now it's on him. And the original pattern called for some tassels. I bought this big pack of jingly bells from like a local pound store before Christmas, and I never got round to using them, but there were some lovely blue ones in there, so I figured I'd put those on instead of the tassels. So yeah, here is my lovely red beard. I love how he turned out. And the final knitting project that I have to show you has been living in this gorgeous bag that was made for me by my lovely friend Jeanette. Hi Jeanette. And this was in a goodie bag that Jeanette so kindly put together when we did our weekend away in February. A group of my knitty, crafty friends got together and we hired a gorgeous farmhouse for the weekend and got up to lots of creative, crafty stuff. And Jeanette made us all these beautiful bags, and inside here I have not one but two pairs of socks. So also on that weekend the lovely Charlie, hi Charlie, bought her vintage sock machine with her, so we were all able to have a play on that and crank out some sock tubes. So basically, if you're not familiar, it's a sort of circular knitting machine with a hand crank, and you kind of set the yarn up and just sort of turn the handle and you get a tube, and then you go back and you add your heels, toes and cuffs to that tube. So I have 2 pairs of socks to show you this week. So this pair here are actually the second pair that I made. And as you can see, I've used some contrast yellow for those. The yellow is just a little ball of My First Regia, one of those really tiny little balls of yarn. And this pair, they're quite a small pair of socks, but this is basically what I had left over after making my first pair from the tube. And I'm going to give these away at some point. Yeah, I'm going to keep these for now, but at some point I will find a good cause to give these away to. And then the second pair, which was actually the first pair that I finished, are for me. So I'm just wrestling one onto my sock blocker. I couldn't find my sock blocker before I started recording, and then I glimpsed it out of the corner of my eye. So these are for me. So these were made with a skein of, or a couple of mini skeins that I picked from the same weekend. We did a mini swap, and we had a big basket on the table full of minis that people had bought. And I picked, or actually I think Jeanette picked this one out for me. And it turned out that this was another yarn from Jenny, Owl About Yarn, that she had dyed up, and it seems to be the perfect contrast for the lovely colours in this sock, because it's got the red, the yellow and also the blue. So yes, these will be for me. Just put the other one on so you can see I definitely have 2. Not much to say about these. The sock tube is slightly wider than I would usually sort of knit when I'm knitting my own hand knit socks, but they fit perfectly fine. So there's my finished pair of socks. And the way Charlie set the machine up gave this sort of like faux rib effect, which I really love. And then I just went back in and used 2.25mm needles to pick up for the toes, the heels and the cuffs, for a gorgeous pair of socks and a lovely momentum of my weekend away. So yeah, that's it for knitting, I think. Yeah, sweater, socks, gnome. Done. Oh no, one other thing. Now, as well as finishing those, I also went back and did a little bit of fixing. So you might remember from, if you've been watching for a while, probably a good couple of months ago now, I knit this Midsummer Meadow sweater, which was a pattern from the Knitter magazine. And the pattern originally finished with I-cord bind-offs for the sleeves and the neck, and I really didn't like how that was rolling. It was rolling down and exposing the inside of the colour work, particularly on the neck. So I decided to rip back and put in a ribbing. And the first ribbing I did was just way too big. I just knit all of the stitches that I picked up into rib, and it was sort of really baggy and wavy. So I went back and ripped out the neckline again and decreased. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I think I decreased every 5 or so stitches to pull the neckline in, and I'm much, much happier. I probably could have even gone down a couple more stitches because it's still a little bit baggy around this side edge here, but honestly, after having tackled this about 3 times, I'm not going to go back and do it again. This is perfectly wearable now, and I think it will improve even more when I give this a bit of a block. It hasn't been blocked yet. As you can see, I haven't even woven in that last end, but I have tried it on, and again I showed a couple of quick pictures over on Instagram, so if you're interested in seeing that, you'll find them over there. But this is now wearable, and I haven't yet worn it in anger, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Hopefully I will get that done this week, just to take it out for its first test drive and see how well it actually does wear. But this is a really nice pattern, so I'm really pleased to be able to actually wear this sweater, because yeah, it's beautiful. That really is it for the knitting. So the final thing is spinning, and spinning will also lead into general chit chat and a couple of acquisitions this week, which I don't usually do an acquisition section, but I've got a couple of new yarns to show off. So the first thing to show, I've been working on my spinning wheel with a gorgeous fibre from the Shepherd's Hut in her House Colours Eagle colourway, and I think I showed, did I show a bobbin of this spun up I think I might have at least showed the fibre off on our last weekly chit chat, but I finished the yarn and it's absolutely gorgeous. I really love this. It's just such a complex, beautiful heathered yarn. So the original fibre was a mix of orange and blue, and some sort of like dusky mauvey tones. Sorry, there's Newt. I wonder if I could... no, she's wandered off again. I don't think I'm going to be able to encourage her to come onto camera, but she obviously has an opinion about this yarn. I spun this on my Haldane Shetland. She's a vintage wheel, and 2-plied it. I have literally just taken this off the drying rack, so I haven't yet measured how many metres I've got from this, but it's so soft and squishy. I'm really proud of this yarn. Yes, there are still thick and thin bits because that's just my hand spinning. I am still learning, and actually this is probably pretty consistent for the most part, and I'm not really super interested in getting entirely 100% consistent yarn, because I think the charm of hand spun is the slight variation in texture. So yeah, I'm super pleased with that one. I've also been spinning away on 2 new to me drop spindles. So I ordered some yarn from my lovely friend Caroline, and we'll chat about that in the acquisitions section. She also we chat quite a lot, and she was telling me about the fact that her husband Robert had recently treated himself to a 3D printer, and that he'd been printing up some Turkish spindles, and she showed me a couple and I fell in love, and she said I could have one. So I sent some money across to cover the cost of materials for this beautiful 3D printed drop spindle. The colour is not showing up to its full gloriousness, but it's this gorgeous bronzy colour, and as you can see I am spinning away. I'm actually plying at the moment. It's the first ever time I've tried plying on a Turkish spindle, and this one spins like an absolute dream. I'm spinning up some fibre from Spin Jones, just a little sample that I have, and I've been playing around with this spindle this weekend, and it's just so lovely, and I'll have a little finished bump of yarn to show you next week. I've only got a little bit left to ply together. I think these sample packs were something like 10-15 grams. And not only did Caroline in the package send me this beautiful spindle, but she also gifted me another one, which was such a surprise and very generous. Thank you so much, Caroline. And look at this. So I've started spinning, but if I push that aside, there are some beautiful sheep cutouts on the arms of this spindle. This one I'm finding a little bit more difficult to spin on, but I think it's this shaft here is maybe 1 centimetre or 2 too long, and I think it puts, as I'm trying to spin it, it sort of wobbles quite quickly rather than a nice kind of smooth spin. I did briefly play around though with putting the shaft of this smaller one through the arms of this one, and that works really well. So the shafts are kind of interchangeable, and when I do that, this one also spins like a dream. So if I can't get into a good rhythm with this longer shaft, it might just be me and me needing to practice a little bit more with it. But if I can't do that, then I do have the option of just swapping out the shaft on that one, and I'll be able to use this one too. Again, another little sample from Spin Jones that I'm playing around with on this gorgeousness. But they are both so beautiful, and I'm really enjoying spinning on those. I've got one other Turkish spindle, which is also a 3D one, but it's really light, and I find it quite difficult to spin on. I found that it does well with fibres like that have a silk content, and want to spin really finely, but I think these ones will be a bit more versatile. They're slightly weightier, so I think they're going to be good for spinning different types of fibres. So I think that's everything for the making this week. So just on to general chat now. As I say, I've got a couple of acquisitions to show you. The first one, I ordered a lovely sock set from Caroline, who is Colourful Creativity, and you will find her website as colourfulcreativity.nl, and you'll find her everywhere online as Coraline. And she had a birthday update. It was her birthday at the end of February, and she dyed a special colourway called Birthday Confetti, and I couldn't resist, and I picked up one of the sock sets that she had in this beautiful colourway. It's showing a bit less vibrant on the screen at the moment than it is in real life. Yarn is a gorgeous speckly yarn with lots of variations of green. There's also some yellow and some pops of orange, moving through to almost sort of like some turquoisey spots. So it knits up beautifully, and I can't wait to get this on the needles. It comes with a mini skein. There were two options, I think. I think there was a teal mini skein and a yellow mini skein. By the time I hopped onto the website, all the teal mini skeins had gone, and I think I might have nabbed the last yellow one. I do believe she has dyed up some more of this, so if you love this colourway as much as I do, then you can pop on over to her website and maybe treat yourself. I also ordered from Caroline this lovely gauge tracker and needle gauge, which is something new that she's had in her shop, and I think she made these in collaboration with local to her designer, and it's just so gorgeous. So it's got the Colourful Creativity cat logo on, and as you can see, pop your needles in to check what size, and there's a lovely little gauge measure there too. So they were the two things that I purchased from Caroline, and she sent me other things because she always does. She's super generous. I won't show you everything else that she sent me, but I will show you off these gorgeous postcards that she sent, which have got lots of lovely various yarny sayings on them. And she so also kindly sourced some gluten-free stroop waffles for me. I'm trying to eat gluten-free at the moment, and it's really improving some health issues that I had back towards the end of last year. So she was very kind as to find some gluten-free ones for me. She sent me some chocolate and some tea, stitch markers. So yeah, a very generous package. Thank you so much, Caroline. And finally, I have some souvenir yarn to share with you. As I already mentioned, we went away with our friends last weekend to the Cotswolds area of England, and it's a really beautiful part of the UK. We spent the best part of a day in a lovely little place called Bourton on the Water, wander around, and we came across a shop called the Bourton Basket. I don't think they have much of an online presence, but it was a lovely craft shop. They had a little bit of everything. So there was some fabric, some embroidery stuff, some yarn, all that sort of creative stuff. And I managed to pick up 2 skeins of Armscott Manor yarn. So this is a lovely yarn that I've not seen or come across before, but basically it's yarn from a flock that's based in the Cotswolds. You'll find them at armscottmanor.co.uk, and it is a yarn made from Portland sheep. I've never heard of Portland before, but according to the information on the back, it says that Portland is one of the oldest known breeds in England, and they're a rare breed, and the Armscott Manor have a conservation flock. So I've got a skein of the natural, so this is 100% undyed wool, Portland, and this one is also 100% wool, but this one says it's been mixed with a little bit of black Welsh mountain. So I guess that gives the sort of dark heathered colour to that, and I thought these would be nice for a pair of mitts or something like that. It's definitely not merino soft, but it's not scratchy in any way, shape or form. I can definitely wear this next to skin, but I am a bit more wool tolerant than I know a lot of people are. So yeah, 250 gram skeins, and I would encourage you to go to their Instagram feed because these sheep are absolutely gorgeous. I've been stalking their Instagram feed, and they pop up lots of these pictures of their flock, and they're so pretty. So yeah, go check them out. Armscott Manor. Let me try and put that. Yeah, so it's nice to have a little souvenir for my weekend away. I need to get knitting because there's quite a few skeins in my little pile that are stacking up, and I'm trying to stick to my rule of anything that comes into the house gets put on the needles fairly quickly. So yeah, I need to sit and knit. There is a good chance that will be a possibility if we end up having to isolate because of the COVID-19 coronavirus. I'm trying to put in plans for the business in terms of what will happen if we have to shut down. At the moment, I'm going to continue for the next week or so unless we get any advice from the government. Otherwise, last week was pretty quiet in the shop, which is quite worrying from a financial point of view. Obviously, a lot of my regular customers are in the older at-risk age category. Also, many of my regular customers have health issues too. So the footfall in the shop, I imagine, is going to get quieter and quieter. So yeah, plenty of thinking going on behind the scenes here at Yarn and Yarns to see what I can do to try and survive the next few weeks in terms of business related stuff. But I am not going to bring the channel down with that kind of stuff. We're here, as I said at the beginning, for a nice bit of distraction. So I hope you have enjoyed the episode. I'll try and pop back with some Yarn and Yarn extras this week. I still have plenty of topics that people suggested on the 100th video for things they'd like to see here on the channel. So I'm working my way through those, and yeah, I'm grateful even more for the online Yarn and Yarns community at this time. Until I get to spend time with you again, I hope that you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Until next time, great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.